listening to Detroit Today on 1019 WDET. I'm Stephen Henderson, and as always, thanks for tuning in. The calls for more civil conversations come from lots and lots of quarters these days, and especially here on WDET and Detroit Today, we really pride ourselves on trying to introduce and sustain more honest and civil conversations, even when they are about tense or controversial subjects. But civil conversation doesn't necessarily mean just being kind to each other. Rather, when we are promoting this idea, what we're really trying to encourage is a sense of curiosity, openness, and humility, particularly with those with whom we disagree. In my life, I try to practice this all the time with peer journalist and friend Nolan Finley. Now, Nolan and I argue over just about everything. Pick a subject and throw it between the two of us, and you will watch us disagree. Sometimes passionately, sometimes bitterly. But he and I have also taken the time to learn a lot about each other's backgrounds, where our ideas come from, and why we believe that our approach is the right one to solving our problems. We have gained an understanding about how we come to the conclusions that we do. And we respect each other. In fact, we like each other kind of a lot. And that appreciation changes the way that we interact. Doesn't mean that we don't argue, doesn't mean that we don't fight, but it opens our minds to different perspectives and gives us pause before we simply try to push our views onto each other or onto others. Look, life is hard, and it is certainly complex, and we may think we have the answers to all of our problems, and sometimes maybe we're right. But more than answers, it's the relationships and our appreciation for others that really allow us to become better individuals and more grounded citizens. Problem solving in a democracy is about understanding. It is not always about agreement. A few years ago, Nolan and I started something called the Civility Project, an effort for us to share the things that we've learned over 15 years of arguing and trying to maintain a relationship with other people to try to figure out better ways to interact with each other. And this year, we have a really big event coming up on Tuesday, October 25th at Oakland University. It is called Civility Day, and it will welcome students and lots of other folks to the university to hear about not just how Nolan and I practice this kind of civility, but how lots of other folks, some elected officials, members of the religious community folks, also lean into that space. To talk about this event and what the Civility Project is all about, we've got Nolan here with us. Nolan, welcome back to Detroit Today.
Morning, Steve.
Also with us is David Dulio, who is a professor of political science at Oakland University and is a huge part of Tuesday's event. He has put a lot of this together in anticipation of what folks at Oakland University will gain from it. Professor Dulio, welcome back to Detroit Today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start here with Civility Day next week. Dave, talk about what that is and what people who attend, and anybody really can attend, what people can get from it.
Absolutely. The Civility Day is about shining a light on not only the Civility Project and the tremendous work that you and Nolan are undertaking and have undertaken with the Civility Project, but expanding it to other examples of what I think of as model behavior and tone, right? When folks disagree, and I think you use the perfect word for it, respect, right? And what I would add to that is people can disagree, certainly. We want them to do so in a civil and respectful manner. And your previous segment was talking about the health of democracy, right? Well, I would submit that democracy is healthy when there are disagreements, but it goes too far when someone with the other opinion is the devil, right? And that doesn't need to be the case. And you and Nolan are such good examples of how I think we would want anybody who disagrees on policy matters or political matters to do so, right? To disagree, but do so in a civil and respectful way. And that's going to be what's on display at Civility Day, not only with you and Nolan, but with a number of other folks from the community that anybody can come and join and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So Nolan, talk about the, I guess, back and forth that we have had for about 15 years between us. Lots and lots of disagreement, sometimes anger, sometimes bitterness when we actually talk about the things that divide us. But the fact that we have been able to maintain a relationship that allows us to have those kinds of conversations, allows us to really get into it and get after each other, but not believe that the other, as Dave says, is evil.
And that's the key. I don't think you and I would ever be accused of having sort of mild-mannered, passionless discussions. We get after it, and we get loud, and somebody watching us might think, Lord have mercy, those guys hate each other. I mean, we do get, as you said, sometimes angry, often loud. But, the key is that respect and understanding. We don't get personal with it, and we don't assign negative qualities to each other, make assumptions about each other because of our disagreements. And, one of the really guiding principles of the Civility Project is our belief that all good people come to their opinions in the same way. They take the information available, run it through the filter of their own experiences and personal values, come up with a viewpoint. And if it's different than yours, it doesn't make them evil, and it certainly doesn't make them dangerous. And, we ask people to drop their assumptions. Don't make assumptions about people's personal characteristics based on their political views. Take some time to get to know who they are and why they think the things they think. And, you can come up with a more productive discourse, I believe, and we've managed to do that.
Yeah. Nolan, this looks different today than it did 15 years ago when we started doing this, and it seems like the world has really started to frown in some ways on this kind of behavior. Talk about why it's so hard right now to do this. What are the things that, I guess, stand in the way of people being able to have, spirited and maybe even angry arguments about issues, but not let that bleed over into animosity?
Well, there's an expectation, I think, Steve, that we pick sides, and that once you've picked a side, you can't cross the line. I mean, we've had that in our own experience where people, who our friends who agree with us will say, well, how can you be friends with him? He's so awful. He's so terrible. He writes and says these horrible things. And, we've got to this point where we do, a lot of factors. I mean, the media environment we live in with cable television and the internet, there's a lot of people out there and a lot of entities out there who profit from division and profit from anger, profit from keeping people mad at each other. And so, that does fuel this idea that we've got to stay firmly on one side of the divide or the other. And, we can't reach across for anything. And we're not talking, we often say, we're not, thinking everybody ought to end up, sitting around a campfire together singing happy songs. I mean, we know there's passion and disagreement, and that's okay. But there also should be some value in discourse across the political divide, and we need to see that value so that we don't become so comfortable in our own views that we never challenge ourselves.
Yeah, Professor DeLeo, talk about the importance of having this event on a college campus, and talk about the things that you hear from young people and see with young people in terms of how challenged they are to have more civil relationships, if not civil conversations?
Sure. I would say several things about that. One, we started the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University in 2018. And it was born out of really two main reasons. And one of them is civic literacy and the fact that it stinks, both on campus and off campus, and which your prior segment sort of gets at with the workings of elections, right? But the other one was directly related to civility. And it was just this realization that Americans can't talk to each other anymore. So we want to, my goal with the Center for Civic Engagement is to make Oakland University known as a convener of conversations about issues of public importance, but to do so in a way that's civil and respectful, which fits right into the Civility Project, which is why we're so happy to have you. And I think I've seen that in classroom discussions, the increase in rancor maybe. So it's a number of things. One is to tone it down and have that respectful civil conversation. But the other one has to do with being on a college campus and the vibrancy of being on a college campus where a free exchange of ideas can take place. If you can't do that on a college campus, where can you do it, right? So that, and these days there's examples that pop up all the time where that doesn't happen. So at OU, I'm delighted to have the support of the administration and faculty colleagues, right? The administration all the way up to the president and board of trustees. They not only welcome it, but they encourage us to have those conversations.
Yeah. Okay, Dave Dulio and Nolan Finley, great to have both of you here. If you are interested in participating in Civility Day next Tuesday, October 25th at Oakland University, you can go to the OU events calendar and register. We've got about 100 people already signed up to come and do that. So come out and learn a little about building relationships across the political divide. All right, that is going to do it for us today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk with Republican candidate in the 12th congressional race, Stephen Elliott, about why he thinks he can beat Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who will also join us to tell us why she should be reelected. This is 101.9 WDET-FM, Detroit's NPR station, your connection to news, music, and conversation.